1. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We are going to give a few minutes for people to continue joining. The number of people here is ticking up, so I'm just going to give people a couple more minutes. We'll actually begin in about 2 or 3 minutes here. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. We'll get started in just a few minutes. I just want to give people time to continue to join. Hello, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. I'm just giving people a little bit of time to continue joining the webinar. We'll get started in just a few minutes here. Hello, everyone, and good morning. Thank you for joining us for our webinar resource fair. We will get started in just 1 minute. I just want to give people an opportunity to join us. Hello, everyone, and good morning. We will get started in just 1 minute, just giving people an opportunity to join our webinar here. All right, everybody, good morning. Let's go ahead and get started. Our numbers have sort of leveled off a little bit. Welcome to our webinar, the Small Business Resource Webinar Resource Fair. My name is James O'Neill. I'm the Director of Outreach for the American Business Immigration Coalition. ABIC is a growing and diverse coalition of businesses that are advocating for economically smart and morally right immigration reform. And during COVID-19, we have added a focus to ensure that relief programs are administered equitably. Before we get going, I want to make sure I thank all of our host organizations, the Illinois Restaurant Association, the National Partnership for New Americans, the Cook County Government, and the Cook County Community Recovery Initiative. Without any of these groups, this webinar would not have been possible. And I also want to thank our guests from the state of Illinois, from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, for joining us today as well. Before we get started, I want to throw this slide up there. It is just the websites for NPNA, ABIC, and Cook County, where you can find information about COVID resources and contact information. As we get started here, I want to quickly go through some of the federal updates that have to do with coronavirus relief. So there are 3 bills right now concerning COVID-19 relief that are currently being debated. The first one is called the HEROES Act, which passed in the House, was written by Democrats. And then we also have the HEALS Act, which was written by Senator McConnell and President Trump. And then a third competing bill has been introduced in the Senate by Republicans as well. So in the HEROES Act, which has already passed in the House by Democrats, there are stimulus checks for $1,200 for all taxpayers and up to 3 dependents. And it continues the enhanced unemployment insurance at $600 a week that existed under the CARES Act. The HEALS Act by McConnell and Trump and the competing bill, the HEALS Act has stimulus checks again for $1,200 for taxpayers filing with Social Security numbers, and the enhanced unemployment is reduced to $200 a week. Both bills include the exact same income threshold for the stimulus checks as CARES, and the HEROES Act also includes an expansion and an extension of the Paycheck Protection Program, and so does the competing bill in the Senate. HEALS is not clear yet whether or not the PPP will be a part of that. But let's get going on our program here. I am very happy to introduce a good friend and a colleague and a great advocate in the immigrant community, the Director of Legal Services for the American Business Immigration Coalition, Irakere Picon.
Thank you, James, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us on this webinar. I just wanted to recap the Paycheck Protection Program in case you haven't applied for it or it's the first time you're hearing about it. We think it's a great way to sort of get some relief, but that is coming to a close at the end of this week. August 8th is the newest extension of the deadline for PPP. So wanted to make sure that folks had an opportunity to learn more about it, but also have a chance to reach out to your lender and apply for it as soon as possible. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Paycheck Protection Program, this was passed through the CARES Act. Earlier this year, it provided around $350 billion in forgivable loans to small businesses through the Small Business Administration, and the coverage period for these loans was originally from February 15 of this year to June 30th, but that has been extended, as I mentioned, twice, and the new deadline and coverage period is August 8th of 2020. It also increased funds to additional SBA lending programs, but the PPP was the biggest one as a result of the COVID pandemic. Next slide. In terms of PPP, the businesses that are eligible for this program are those with 500 or less employees. That includes both full-time, part-time, and other status employees. Your business must meet the SBA standards as a small business. If you are in the food industry and you have multiple franchises or different establishments within the same company, as long as each independent business has 500 employees or less, you are eligible for PPP on each of those physical locations. And then one of the biggest changes was that nonprofits, 501c3s, and other nonprofits also became eligible for this SBA program. In order to qualify, the applicant or the business must have been in operation on February 15, 2020, and must have paid a salary and payroll taxes on or before that date. It's some of the biggest changes from the SBA previous loans is that the SBA wasn't requiring any personal guarantee and no collateral required for a loan. So there was very little risk for a small business to apply for a PPP grant, given that there was a high need for it, but also the requirements were very low. Earlier on, there was some confusion about how much a business could get in relief, but we've tried to sort of simplify that as the program has rolled out. Businesses and nonprofits are eligible for PPP not to exceed $10 million, and it's based on the average monthly payroll for 2019 multiplied by 2.5, and that gets you your maximum loan amount. There is a different calculation if you are a business that's not in operation for an entire year, if you're a seasonal employer, but it's the same sort of 2.5 multiplier that you use, and that's intended to cover some overhead, but it's mostly intended to cover the payroll of your employees as we saw businesses close and go through these obstacles of COVID. In terms of what you can include in your payroll calculation, it was anything involving salary, wages, commission, any other form of compensation to an employee. The only thing that you would not be able to include is any compensation to an independent contractor. Independent contractors are eligible for PPP by themselves, so an employer can only include compensation and wages and salaries for anybody on payroll as provided in the W-2 or W-4 earning statements. Payment of vacation, parental, family, or medical sick leave, group health insurance benefits, these are all things you can include as part of your payroll calculation to get the maximum amount of grant possible. As I mentioned, sole proprietors, independent contractors, self-employed individuals are eligible for PPP. There was some obstacles with this at the beginning, but I think as the program progressed, more and more folks were able to apply for it. They are capped at $100,000 per year in terms of potential compensation that they can claim for the calculation. And in terms of what was excluded from payroll costs in general, both for the businesses, nonprofits, and individuals, was that you couldn't include any compensation for any employee who earned in excess of $100,000. So if they earned $110,000, you could only count up to $100,000 of that employee's salary or wages. You could not include payroll taxes, relevant retirement taxes, and income taxes, and any compensation. Part of the program is that it's a forgivable loan, which turns it into a grant. And for the business or nonprofit or to be eligible for loan forgiveness, you must use at least 75% of the loan amount for payroll costs. And no more than 25% can be used for non-payroll related costs such as utilities, rent, or lease payments. So it became a little more strict, but that's sort of the rule as it stands. If a business or a nonprofit or an applicant were to use more than 25% of the loan on non-payroll related costs, the impact, the consequence of that is that you could become liable for that portion in excess of 25% to be repaid to the SBA. It would not be forgiven. It would not turn into a grant, and so that's definitely a risk that any applicant should take into consideration. The loan forgiveness period, because the program was extended through August 8th, loan applications, we expect them to start being submitted at the end of the coverage period, but that'll depend on your lender. And so even though this is being administered by the SBA, it was contracted out, or at least not contracted, but it was delegated to SBA certified lenders. And so each of you might have had different experiences with your lender, and so it's going to be very important that you stay in touch with your lender to figure out what the steps are going to be for loan forgiveness moving forward once the program ends on August 8th. Different lenders will have different rules, and so it's very important that you stay in contact with your lender on PPP forgiveness. Thank you.
Thank you, Edith, today. That's very helpful. Before we move on, I also want to mention that these slides are available. You can download them on your resources tab on your viewing screen right now. I also want to mention that we will be posting a recording of this webinar on the ABIC Vimeo page, and we will make sure to get a link out to everybody who is attending today. I also want to make sure that you're aware you can ask questions. So in that question box, go ahead and type your questions. We want this to be as interactive as possible, and we want to answer your concerns as we go forward. So please don't be shy about asking questions. Our next speaker, this is my first time working with him, but I'm very excited to have him here today to give an update on some state-level programs that you might be able to take advantage of. So please welcome Jonathan McGee.
Thank you so much, and I'm so excited to be here with you all. I am Jonathan McGee, Deputy Director for Regional Economic Development at Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. I manage our field team across the state, and specifically we're responsible for business relief currently during COVID, but usually it'd be business expansion, workforce development, and economic development. So as you all know, the global pandemic really took us by storm, and Governor Pritzker really jumped into action to ensure that we can get relief to the businesses that needed it the most. And so what I really wanted to go through was everything that we've done at the state level, what we're planning to do, and how you can work with us and our team to ensure that small businesses in this community can take advantage of our programs. So since we started off with $60 million that we released with our hospitality grants, our emergency loan fund, and our Downstate Stabilization grant fund. And the one that is still open today is our Downstate Stabilization program, and that's for folks who are in outside of actually Cook County, but in more rural areas. And this was a federal program that we helped administer during COVID-19. Also, too, we have our fast track program that we really released because we knew that it was important to get construction workers back to work, and so we'll be making those announcements soon. And we've also been doing a lot of work around our Get Hired Illinois program, which is really helping workers. We know that given unemployment has been very high, we really want to make sure that we're working to connect employers with workers and vice versa, as well as we recently announced our partnership with Coursera, really meant to help aim to get displaced workers upskilled for new jobs. But really the big thing that I want to talk about, no pun intended, is our big program. But before we get there, I did want to talk about how we're advocating constantly to make sure that we can get more federal dollars. Through the CARES Act, we also have done countless listening sessions and webinars across the state with over 22,000 businesses. And, right after the global pandemic, we saw civil unrest, which a lot of businesses experienced a lot of damage. And so we do have a program that we're going to roll out very soon to help address that also. Next slide. The Business Impact Grant Program, the BIG program. So this was a program that we recently rolled out, $540 million in grants to small businesses to reimburse costs due to COVID-19 required closures. So as you all know, we used our Restore Illinois plan, which was a phased approach, and now we're currently in phase 4. But still, there's a lot of businesses that are operating at full capacity that are not open, and really BIG is meant to be a lifeline during this critical time. $270 million of that money was allocated to the child care program that was recently released, because we know that if folks don't have daycare and child care services, then they cannot return to work. Our first round of BIG grants, we announced $60 million in funds, and specifically, I kind of want to walk through this program in detail because I know that there was a lot of confusion when it came out, and I want to make sure that folks are most prepared for our next round. So we have what we call disproportionately impacted areas, or DIAs. And so this was a lottery program really prioritized to help those communities that have been impacted the most by COVID-19, as well as kind of cross-referencing that with poverty, right, in areas that are underserved. And so we have our DIAs, which, really are these areas, right, that are impacted, but then we've got what we call severe DIAs as well. And these were really areas that, on top of that, had been impacted by civil unrest. And so the first round, we focused on 3 industries: bars and restaurants, salons and barber shops, and health and fitness. And the reason why is because, we had gotten feedback that these were the areas that needed the funds the most. Now, to be clear, you did not have to be in a DIA in order, if you were a barber or a health and fitness center, or you were in one of these categories in order to apply for the funds. Just to make that clear, if you were in a DIA, you were going to be prioritized more in the lottery. And then if you were in a severe DIA, you didn't have to be in any of these industries at all. You could have been any business that applied. And so I did want to make sure that was clear, because I know that some folks at the beginning of this did not understand that piece. And so to also be clear, we took I-10 business owners. We wanted to make sure this program was inclusive. The other piece of this was that during this first round, essentially, if you applied and were eligible, most of the folks are going to get money, and we're hoping to announce that very, very soon. There was a threshold at one point, and I know that was feedback we got around $80,000. And so now in our next round, what we're going to do is make sure that that's adjustable, because we know that some small businesses, especially if you're a barber shop, you may not have made $80,000. And so we really want to make sure that that number is reflective of the actual losses that you experienced and that you had. And again, we're going to probably open up a larger pool of money. This next round, we're looking at mid-August to open up our next round of funds. And again, we want to be clear, the industries that we cover, if you're in that industry and you're not in a DIA, you can still apply. If you are in a DIA, that's going to heighten your opportunity to receive funds. And then again, if you're in a severe DIA, it won't matter what business you're in. And so, one of the things that we are looking at as well is we're looking at, a different set of industry businesses. So we do know that there were some businesses during this first round that, did not apply or were not able to take advantage of the funds, and we are making sure that we're looking at that. But we also have seen some larger industries, event spaces, right, museums, some of these areas that really make their money from large gatherings, which we know can't happen right now. And so we're really trying to look at different industries that we want to include in the second round. If there's any that you all have that you think we're missing, I am happy to take that feedback upstairs. And again, the whole purpose of this program really is to make sure that we're getting funds to folks that have not received anything. And so also, if you receive PPP and EIDL, it's not that you can't apply, right? It's that you just, again, you won't be prioritized as those folks who've received nothing. And really, this program, we're looking at people who haven't received state funding, who haven't received any funding, and really need these funds to make sure that their business can survive and their business can remain afloat. So the BIG program is our primary grant program for the state. It is one of the largest grant programs in the nation. And, our goal is to make sure that we get this money out the door. And we've been working with our partners at Axion. We're working with community partners as well. And so, again, the other piece that I want to share with you all is I have a team of folks, which I know some of you probably worked with my team member, Deanna Alfaro, but I have our Office of Minority Economic Empowerment and our Regional Economic Development team who's willing to do one-to-one technical assistance and customer service with you. So I can make sure I share that information following this PowerPoint and presentation, because we do have a dedicated team, in addition to our small business development centers, which we know are all in the communities and across the state. I did want to talk about our Rebuild Distressed Communities Grant program that's going to come out very, very soon. We're looking at this month. This was a direct response to COVID, to civil unrest. We saw a lot of our neighborhoods, especially on the south and west sides of Chicago, in communities of color, really get destroyed, right? And they had already, dealt with the wrath of the global pandemic. And so what we wanted to do was make sure that these businesses had a chance to rebuild, repair, and, get their storefronts and their businesses back up and running. Again, this is focused DIAs. We're looking at areas that, were underinsured, maybe have been uninsured. And really, if they don't receive these funds, they won't come back. And we know how much this is important to our community. And so grants will range from $1 million to $10 million for some of our folks that are going to be administering these grants. So we have been working with community partners to help us administer these grants. And so then businesses who have been impacted can apply through partners in the community. We know that these partners are the ones who best understand the need, and so we wanted to make sure that we were working with those partners who can best make sure that this money gets to the businesses that have been impacted most. I talked about our Downstate Stabilization Fund, so I won't go into this too much, but again, we still have funding in this. If there's folks on this call who are in rural areas or in areas that aren't metropolitan areas of the state, this is a grant program that local units of government can apply for, and businesses can receive up to $25,000 in working capital. And so wanted to just make sure that I let you all know everything that we have available currently and everything that the state is doing on behalf of small businesses. I talked about our Fast Track program. Again, we're going to be making those announcements soon. And really the goal for this was to stimulate economic infrastructure and development during this tough time so that we can get folks back to work and we can attract business. And so we did receive a lot of applications for this program. Our Rebuild Illinois program is the premier public infrastructure program for the state. And so if you haven't taken advantage of some of these dollars, we do encourage you to apply. We still have our rolling grant program open for our shovel ready, as well as our regional economic development. And so, again, if you want to learn more about those programs, please feel free to reach out to my team. I did talk about this a little bit earlier, which is our small business development centers, and we work in tandem with these centers really because they're rooted in the community to really help small businesses with their everyday needs. And so we actually just announced 7 new centers. Our small business development centers just got additional funding from the CARES Act to make sure that we can increase our bandwidth and our capacity. You can find the list of them on our IllinoisSDDC.biz website. Again, this is no cost, confidential business guidance and training. And again, what we did a lot of work doing was helping folks apply for those CPP funds and those EIDL funds, and really helping to walk businesses through that process, because we know that it was not easy. And so my team works in tandem with the small business development centers. We want to make sure that we're here to support businesses throughout this time. Again, we also work to get a disaster declaration for civil unrest for businesses, again, that were impacted by that. And so DCEO, in partnership with SBA and our small business development centers, are really working around the clock to ensure that we can support businesses during this time and get that relief to the folks who need it. Lastly, our Get Hired Illinois. Again, for employers that are looking for employees, we know that this has been a tough time for folks. We have the virtual job fairs that we're running, and really, again, since we launched, we've had 400 plus new employers. We've added 130 job fairs, and we have about 60,000 jobs total available on the page. And so, again, what we want to do is make sure that we're approaching workforce development from a multifold kind of piece here. It's how are we connecting employers with displaced workers? How are we upskilling workers who have been displaced? And then how are we helping workers and employers kind of increase their ability to be tech ready and really to meet the need and meet the time, because we do know that innovation and technology is something that businesses need at this time and will need to rely on. And so lastly, I did want to share some information. I have my team member, Manny Lopez, as well as Deanna Alfaro. I have my team's information as well as all the other resources that we have at the state aimed at helping to support COVID-19 relief. So thank you so much for having me, James, and thank you all for inviting us, and I look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. That's very incredibly helpful. I want to, again, remind people that they can download these slides to get some of those links and make sure that you have that contact information on the slide currently on your screen, and remind people, again, to ask questions as we go. We're going to be doing question and answer at the end. Our next speaker, along with President Preckwinkle, has been really the driving force behind these webinars. She cares deeply about the people and the small businesses that she serves in her role with the Bureau of Economic Development. Please welcome Xochitl Flores.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. My name is Xochitl Flores, and I'm the Bureau Chief of the Cook County Bureau of Economic Development. First, I'd like to acknowledge and thank really our presenters and partners at ABEC and MPNA for preparing this webinar today. I also want to welcome all the participants. So thank you for joining us today. This is critical information, and it's great that individuals are continuing to access this information. And I encourage you to reach out to us if you have questions, or if you see that there's a need to develop more customized webinars. We'd be happy to work with entities to figure out how to get the most informative webinars put together for our businesses during this time. I know that COVID has created unprecedented challenges for each of our businesses, and during this time of physical distancing and virtual interaction, many of us feel more alone than ever, but we're here to help, and I'm genuinely asking for our partnership, because I realize that it's going to take all of us rolling up our sleeves in order to get our economy moving forward and recovering past this pandemic. So in the first weeks following this pandemic, the Bureau of Economic Development mobilized and coordinated with many of our county partners and our grantees to take a step back and assess what was the critical social service and business needs that were happening specifically within suburban Cook County, because that's our area of focus within the county. We also formed a national partnership with the Illinois Business Immigration Coalition, the Illinois Restaurant Association, and the National Partnership for New Americans, and many economic development organizations, because we realized that we all needed to come together to deliver the services that were most critical during this time. So our rapid response efforts that were launched in early March and April included the launching of our official Cook County Recovery Initiative, and it provided rapid relief supports and assistance and outreach to small businesses, independent contractors, and nonprofits. We also provided additional resources to address the needs of homeless shelters in suburban Cook County. So within the Bureau of Economic Development, we do have a mission and an objective to meet the needs of both businesses and residents. So it's oftentimes very difficult to weigh those, but we realize that we need to be very comprehensive in our approach because both are needed during this time. But over the last few months, we really have begun shifting to planning for equitable recovery efforts and have evolved our resources that we are using to address the needs of both residents and businesses. So this has been a comprehensive and evolving effort, and we have really relied on many of our partners to assist us in diving into data and needs to identify how the county can best position our residents and our communities to recover from the pandemic. Last week, the Cook County Board approved our plan to use $82 million in CARES Act recovery funds to launch Cook County's equitable recovery efforts. This effort is centered around assisting both businesses and communities impacted by COVID-19. And as we are all aware, the impact of this pandemic is resulting in disproportionate numbers of business closures in our most vulnerable communities. We know that there's over 30% delinquency on mortgage payments during this time, and there's a staggering increase in layoffs. In Cook County alone, there is a 16% unemployment rate, and many renters are facing eviction while the number of people sheltered by homeless agencies continues to increase each night. So those are severe issues that we're at the forefront really trying to assess how to work with our partners and other government entities. So it's very helpful to see the comprehensive listing of offerings that the state is providing, as well as the city of Chicago. But within our sphere of influence, what we try to assess is where the gap is within suburban Cook County and address those specific needs. So through our partnerships with IBEC and MPNA, we are coordinating efforts and developing these webinars to make sure that all businesses are well informed about how to access these critical financial resources. And we understand that that navigating through all this information can be quite difficult at times. And we also know that many of the programs that do become available are quickly oversubscribed. And we see this most impacting marginalized communities. So that's why we're really rolling up our sleeves, like I said, and working with these partners, looking at statistics and the data that's collected by these teams to figure out what resources we can provide to meet those gaps. So early on, we realized that in order to develop and launch the critical resources needed, we would need to not just utilize our resources, but we would need to leverage these resources with those of philanthropy and the private sector. So this is why we have been partnering with a variety of experts and stakeholders to facilitate an equitable, efficient, and streamlined development and execution of programs aimed at providing a holistic approach to addressing all these needs that we see in the business community and with our residents. So our goal is to launch initiatives that are focused on small businesses, manufacturing, workforce development, housing, and critical social service supports. Our work is going to contribute to many efforts and will complement many efforts that are ongoing by the state and the city and the federal government, but we know that it's critical for us to address food disparities, small business finances and strategy, and to help build the resilience of homeowners and renters during this time. And we recognize that our resources alone will not provide the silver bullet to fix these issues. However, it is imperative that we work with our partners to be strategic about how we invest these dollars in the programs that are being developed. So by pooling our expertise and our funding, our participating partners will be able to more efficiently deliver these critical resources and reach a broader group of small businesses and residents across suburban Cook County. So later this week, we will be announcing the Cook County COVID-19 Rental Assistance Program, and that's going to be focused specifically on providing support to renters in suburban Cook County. I know many of you are business owners and nonprofits, but all of us require shelter, and I know that we each know someone or someone from your staff or a family member or a partner that needs this valuable support. So I am encouraging you to please visit our website and sign up for our newsletter, because we are constantly sending information out about the suite of services that we are offering. So please visit cookcountyil.gov/recovery. We send out weekly newsletters that will prepare you for the programs that are upcoming, give you information on eligibility criteria so that you can share with others, and I encourage you to please share it within your networks, because I said we're not just implementing programs focused on businesses, but we're also very focused on helping residents recover through this pandemic. So we will continue to send out information as soon as the application becomes available. That will go out later this week. We know that COVID-19 has devastated our small businesses, nonprofits, gig workers, and independent contractors. We realize that this is no ordinary time, that small businesses and self-employed workers are the heart of our municipalities throughout Cook County. So we really need to figure out how to best assist them, rolling up our sleeves and helping them navigate through this information. So partners like NPNA and ABIC and the Illinois Restaurant Association have really been working hand in hand with us, calling these businesses and nonprofits and helping them navigate through all these resources. So we encourage you to reach out to us, reach out to our partners. But as the pandemic continues, our efforts will remain full steam in motion. We want to ensure that everything we can do to help businesses remain operational, to create access to critical resources and provide residents with safe shelter and basic resources to help meet their needs. So all this information is available on our website. The webinars that we have been providing, they're all posted on our website. We also have them translated, so please share that with individuals, because we're fortunate that we're here participating in this webinar, but I realize that information is not often available to everyone, so it's easy to share these links with others, so please do so. So I look forward to getting these resources out to our communities and residents, and I appreciate everyone who has joined today's webinar, and hope you find something that will help you during this unique time, but look forward to our continued partnership, and Cook County is here to assist you through this time. So thank you very much, and I will be available at the end to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sochi, as always. Before we jump over to our question and answer section, I wanted to quickly go through some of the private funding opportunities that we've been researching and compiling that may be of use to you. Some of them are location specific and very localized, and some of them might be have a little bit more broad eligibility. So we're going to go through them right now. The first one is from BWC Capital. The application is still open, and it is a rolling application. It started in July, so the recommendation is that if you qualify and are interested, you should do that as soon as possible, because once the funding is up, the program will end. This is a loan program, so it is a low interest loan that you have to pay back. But in terms of eligibility, you have to have 1 year of operation, so at least 1 year of operation of your business, and greater than 2 full-time employees, so 2 or more full-time employees there. The priority focus of this program is Black-owned businesses, and they're also going to put priority focus on growth-oriented businesses. So those are businesses that have potential to grow when the coronavirus outbreak is no longer as much of a factor. So that's our first one. The second one we've come across is the Greater Englewood Chamber of Commerce. This is, again, a lot more localized than some of the other programs we found. You have to have a location, a storefront in Englewood, and have to have experienced loss due to COVID-19. And it's aimed at smaller businesses, so 25 or fewer employees are the eligibility requirements for that program. The funds are limited, and again, they're rolling, so if you feel that you qualify for this program, please apply as soon as possible to maximize your chances of getting funding. And then there's another program called Rebuild the Hood. For this one, for eligibility, you must be a Black-owned business, and you must be spending the money that you get from this program on loss of income, operating expenses, or insurance premiums. And again, we recommend applying as quickly as possible to those programs if you feel that you qualify. So moving forward to our question and answer, we are a little bit ahead of time, which is great because that gives us more opportunity for questions. For our questions today, we have all of our speakers joining us back. We have Jonathan from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. We have Xochitl Flores from the Cook County Bureau of Economic Development. And we have Irakere Picon, our Director of Legal Services, which is great because they can talk to sort of the federal, state, and county level programs. So our first question here, I'm going to give to Jonathan because it's about the big program. For the second round, will nonprofits be eligible to apply?
So we right now have been specifically focused on small businesses. We know that nonprofits have been, hit really hard by the pandemic, and it is something that we're exploring ongoingly. But we also just realized that the need for small businesses right now is just so large that we want to make sure that we're getting funds to them. So, if there's specific examples of nonprofits that support businesses or nonprofits that we really should be thinking about, please feel free to email them directly to me. And it's my name, jonathan.mcgee@illinois.gov. Also happy to follow up. But I know as of right now, we really are focused on the business community and want to make sure that we can get them the resources. So, but if there is follow-up or if there is nonprofits that, we really need to take a look at, then we're happy to explore that. So, James, definitely feel free to pass that along to me and happy to support and share that feedback.
Absolutely. Thank you. Our next question is going to be for Irakere about the Paycheck Protection Program. What documents do I need to prepare in order to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program?
Thanks, James. The easiest way is if you have a payroll provider, payroll services company like ADP that can provide wage and earning statements for you that you could use for applying to the PPP. But again, this is going to depend on your lender and the specific lender that you're talking to and working with on the PPP. But generally, you want to provide 2019 tax forms, but also the wage and earning statements for your business. So confirm with your lender as soon as possible before August 8th. The sooner the better, because I've heard from a few lenders that they are no longer accepting PPP applications, even though it's been extended through August 8th, simply because they're working on processing and making sure that whatever pending applications they have on hand are submitted to the SBA by August 8th. So please reach out to your lender to find out what other documents you'll need to submit with your PPP application.
And just to follow up on that question, Irakere, there's another one. Where do you suggest that I go to apply for PPP? What types of institutions?
Most of the larger banks are certified by the SBA. They have to be certified by the SBA. So we were working with self-help for a long time. I don't know if they are still accepting applications, given that the extension is coming, the deadline is coming up. But it also most small community branches or community banks will also be SBA certified. So it'll just depend on where you live and what's more accessible to you. But also asking the lender specifically if they are still accepting new applications in time for the August 8th deadline.
Thank you. Our next question is for Sochi. How can I access the technical assistance offered by Cook County? Should I contact the county directly or contact one of the organizations you mentioned you are working with?
Individuals are welcome to go either route. On our website, we have a list of additional partners. So those are three of the organizations that are assisting us with developing our webinars. But we also have organizations that are available within the south suburbs and throughout all of suburban Cook County. So you can access our website to provide you a listing of all the partners that you can quickly access.
Thank you very much. This is another question for Ida Kede about PPP. When will the PPP forgiveness application be available? My lender says they are not ready, but I want to make sure I don't miss my opportunity.
So in theory, the application should be available to apply for loan forgiveness right after soon after the PPP program is set to end, which is August 8th, 2020. But I think the SBA is still working through some of those details. So it's going to be very important that you stay in contact with your lender. You also visit the SBA.gov, SBA.gov, for the most up-to-date information on PPP and specifically the loan forgiveness application. So lender and the SBA are two great sources for that information. Actually, the application should also be available on the SBA's website, but your lender should also be able to provide you with one as well.
Great, thank you. Our next question is also for Jonathan. Will round 2 of BIG also be by zip code? So will the money or will eligibility be based on zip code? And what about home-based businesses that don't have a specific location? How can they apply?
Well, so to kind of clarify, remember, so it's kind of three ways we look at this. So we're going to have specific industries, right? And if you are in those industries, it doesn't matter where you are. So, for example, it was bars and restaurants for the first one, barbershops and beauty salons, and then, health and fitness centers. So if you were not in a disproportionately impacted area or a severely disproportionately impacted area, you were still eligible as long as you were in that industry. Now, if you are in a DIA, you receive priority, as a result of being there. So, because it's a lottery system. So folks that are in the DIAs, they're prioritized. And then if you're in a severe DIA, it does not matter what business you're in. And so for home-based businesses, depending on, the industry, when you say there is no location, I think, where is it that you operate your home-based business, number one, and then, what is that industry of that home-based business? And then, it may be that you're in a severe DIA and then it doesn't really matter what your industry is. So, for big round 2, we're going to release those industries. We're still going to have our severe DIA option. If you fall in those different industry areas, then, you don't have to be in a certain zip code location or area. So just want to clarify that, and I hope that's helpful.
Great, thank you. I have another question for Ida Kede about the Paycheck Protection Program. If I have an employee quit and I replace them amidst the pandemic, will that count against me when it comes to the forgiveness application?
No, the forgiveness calculation is based on the percentage of the loan that was used for payroll purposes. So at least 75% of your Paycheck Protection Program, money has to be used for payroll. But if there is a reduction in the total number of full-time employees, then that will be taken into account in terms of how much your PPP loan will also be reduced, proportional to the percentage of the reduction in employees that you've had. So it's not based on specific employees being on the payroll or being rehired. It's about the total number of full-time equivalent employees being on your payroll at the time that you apply for loan forgiveness and at the time that you had that you applied for the PPP program itself. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you very much, Equitable. Our next question is for Sochi. There's a listener here who applied for a Cook County Recovery Initiative loan and hadn't heard back. Are those still in process?
Yes, those are still in process, and the loans will be, our lending partners will be communicating with applicants throughout this month. So stay tuned, but you will get information or follow-up from our lending partners in the month of August.
Great, thank you very much. Another question for Jonathan. What documents do I need to apply for the BIG program? And another piece to that, can I apply for the BIG program if I file my taxes with an ITIN instead of a Social Security number?
Yes, so I-10 is eligible for BIG, so I do want to be clear there. And what we usually ask for BIG is bank statements and bank information so that we can verify that the expenses are correct. And so essentially, what you're going to want to do is make sure that, you get with your bank in advance to get your relevant, statements in regards to losses, right? So we want to see how much have you lost, how much has COVID-19 impacted your business, and then, yes, we do accept the I-10. We do encourage folks to make sure that they have this information in advance because it may take a while to get this, and we want to make sure that folks are prepared. And one thing we have been doing is we'll release the application in advance just for folks to view before you can actually apply so that you can prepare. So long story short, those are kind of the main kind of elements that you need in order to apply for BIG. And yeah.
Great, thank you. There are a couple of questions that are very specific that I'm seeing come in. If you have a very specific question about your business specifically, best option for you is going to be to just get in contact with somebody. So that would be either at Cook County or getting in contact with ABIC, or for nonprofits, we recommend getting in contact with the National Partnership for New Americans, NPNA, and then we will be able to help you from there. Only because some of these questions are going to involve some follow-up questions about how your business operates, and it wouldn't be a great idea for us to give you a definitive answer without getting the full picture on which programs you do or do not apply for. So if you have a very specific question, please just get in contact with some of our technical assistance organizations. You can email me at joneil, JONEILL, at illinoisbic.biz, or you can go to ibic.us, and then you can find our contact information on that website as well. And again, you can also go through Cook County and have some of your questions answered that way as well. So for any businesses with very specific questions, please go that route. But our next question here is actually both for Jonathan and Irakere. Is my credit score going to be considered for BIG, and is my credit score going to be considered for the Paycheck Protection Program? Jonathan, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, so we do, Axion does look, well, number one, this is not a loan. So the BIG program is a grant program. So actually, in this case, we are solely looking at your expenses. We are looking at what you submit to us, and your credit score is not necessarily an action that we're going to look at. That's not something we're going to look at. So actually, no. If it was our loan program, that would be different. But for this grant program, we, are looking at the finances. We are looking at kind of all of the deliverables that you need, whether you're eligible, and then we put you in the lottery as long as you're eligible for the program. So.
This is Irakere. In terms of PPP, an applicant's credit score is not considered for PPP purposes.
Great, thank you very much. And there's one more follow-up question about will my credit score be considered for the EIDL? Do you want to take that question as well, Irakere?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Will credit score be considered for the EIDL loans from SBA?
So for EIDL loans, this is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan program through the SBA. So that program under the CARES Act no longer has any more funding. So I believe that there are additional requirements that an applicant had to submit for an IDL grant or loan, including, I believe, a credit score and some guarantees. But I don't want to speak without fully confirming. I do know that it's much more stringent than the PPP and does require additional requirements. So it's just a matter of confirming those with you. But as far as the PPP goes, it's meant to cover a business for payroll expenses, and so an applicant's credit score will not be considered as part of the application for PPP.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you to all of our panelists today. Again, I want to reiterate that these slides are available for download under the Resources tab on your viewing screen. If we did not get to your question or you have one of those more specific questions, please visit these websites that are on your screen right now to get in contact with us. We will also be posting a video recording of this webinar on the ABIC Vimeo account, which will then get sent out to all of you, that link. And so you'll be able to reference this again and download the slides for any of the links or any of the email addresses that are in this presentation. But again, thank you to all of our host organizations, and thank you very, very much to all of our people on the webinar today. Jonathan, it was great working for you for the first time, and Sochi, it's always great to hear from you. You're a wealth of information. And so with that, we're going to end just about 2 minutes early. Thank you again to everybody, and please have a terrific week.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.